All right, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons, who had a very bizarre draft. There's no getting around it. Listen, I don't want to spend forever doing the Michael Penix thing. I made a whole video just specifically dedicated to, I think it's called What Are the Falcons Doing? So you can check that out if you want to, kind of talking about the decision. But, to recap, if you haven't seen that and want to hear my thoughts, if you're a Falcons fan who wants to hear someone dislike the move, or maybe even talk about the potential positives that could happen with it as well, these are my thoughts. Just to set up what you're looking at, this chart, it's, column all the way to the left, that is the number in which each player was drafted. The next number is when they were projected to go according to the consensus big board. What was the average placement for them on mock drafts, the player name, and then the position. So Penix was, he was drafted 8th, was projected to go 31st. So he was projected to be a first rounder, a late first rounder. But people kept saying, he would have been there in the second. No, he wouldn't have. And I think someone would have snatched him up earlier, to be honest, because he is someone who, I really liked. I don't think there are some people saying that are criticizing it, saying he should not have been, a top 10 pick. I disagree with that. I think he is really valuable. The thing, it's just entirely the team. Kirk Cousins, I get annoyed when people say this. It is not basically a 2-year deal. It is an extended deal. You can get out of it after 2 years, but then you're getting $25 million in dead cap, which might be what they want to do, but that's not a 2-year deal then. When you have to pay $25 million after that second year, people do the same thing with the Daniel Jones contract. It's, you can get out of it after the second year, but that doesn't make it a 2-year deal. So that's kind of the dilemma of what are they going to do there. Again, they have brought up I think they themselves said, hey, look at the Packers and what they did with Jordan Love. And I get it, but I still don't love that thought process either. There isn't strong evidence to support that letting a quarterback sit for an entire year or 2 or 3 is going to help them become a better player. Like, it worked with Jordan Love, it worked with Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't mean it works with everybody, right? And in fact, when you do start off sitting, your odds of becoming a better NFL player are lower than when you start off just playing day one. It's not significant, and I think you could argue that jump just simply comes from some players just are never good enough, and that's why they start off on the bench, that kind of thing. But still, when it comes to hyped up prospects, early first rounders, the guys who play right away are more likely to succeed. That's just how it works. So, I don't love it. I think they also are they said maybe they're hopeful that they can get kind of Aaron Rodgers MVP mentality stuff out of Kirk Cousins, because of course Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs after the Jordan Love selection. Well, they also went from Mike McCarthy to Matt LaFleur. I think that had more to do with it than the Jordan Love selection. I don't know if it's fully fair to credit Rodgers' MVPs. I don't think he didn't care before then, but after Jordan Love, now he cares. I don't know about that. I'm sure the motivation helped a little, but I just don't think I don't think that's worth spending. There's better ways to motivate a player than spend the 8th overall pick. That's what I think. I also didn't love their second round pick, Rook Ohororo, who I'm pretty sure I'm not saying that name correctly. I was a big Johnny Wilson fan. I thought he should have been talked about as a more hyped up prospect, so he was kind of slept on. So that's part of why I disliked this move, is I think there was just a better player on the board. You see the consensus big board did have, they had it, about a 30 spot reach there, which is never good. Typically when you draft a guy who's supposed to go into 30s, typically when you draft a guy who's supposed to go into 60s and the 30s, they play like a guy who's supposed to go into 60s. That being said, there's things to like about him. He's definitely a project guy. The analytics aren't great, but I think they're hoping they can coach him up. And if you trust your coaching staff and your development, there is a chance he is better than, there's a chance he's a really good interior defensive lineman. I just thought there were better players on the board, even at that position. Braylon Trice, let's shift gears a little bit. Now we're in a situation where, hey, I like this pick. I like Braylon Trice at pick 74, was projected to go 70, and I think 70 was too low, to be honest. Has some really good analytics, is someone who really can rush the passer. I get that the physical tools aren't going to wow you, but sometimes just get a good player, especially at the edge rush position, which is so technical that, I think people really kind of don't do this often enough, go out and get a guy like this. So, to be honest, from this point forward, I think the Falcons actually had a pretty solid draft. I don't love all their picks, and you see, I mean, basically they're almost all reaches. There's only 2 of these picks that aren't reaches, according to the consensus big board. So that's, okay. I guess I shouldn't say I kind of like the draft. I didn't like the draft from this point forward either, but I didn't think nothing was crazy after picks 2, I thought. And like the first couple, I think were actually pretty strong. Like, Brandon Dorlus is another guy who I think was a pretty good pick. Dorlus is a guy who's kind of an interesting player. He's sort of this tweener type, as he's, 280 pounds, kind of is like, okay, what, is he an edge rusher? I think really, ideally, he would be a 3-4 defensive end. I put him as interior defensive lineman, although I do see him listed as defensive tackle and as edge rusher, but I think that's kind of where I would see him. Is a fascinating player. Again, you do kind of wonder if there is some, he's not a fully polished player for sure, but again, 109 was the pick. He was supposed to go 78. Anytime you can get on the right side of that board, that's usually a pretty good thing. So I definitely feel pretty good about that. Then you have JT Bertrand, who is someone who is a linebacker out of Notre Dame, who, is very much, I think you could argue, is an undersized player at 233, 6'1", but sometimes it's actually not the worst thing in the world to get a young, a smaller linebacker that can move well. And he isn't the, a physical freak that some of these linebackers are either. At the same time, though, did have a really good year. I think the other criticism is only kind of a one-year wonder, so you have both of those things, and that's definitely what you what you look at for sure. But at the same time, there's a lot to like about him, so that's why I would I think there's plenty to look at there. Then, another kind of weird pick here, which I almost wonder if at this point they were just going for special teams, which it's a little early. Usually kind of get to around 200s is when you look at special teams, but we're almost there. So I think it's we're in that ballpark because, running backs a lot of times are special teams players. He's someone that, I would say in this situation, I don't think is going to get a lot of carries, just given the fact that you have multiple good running backs who can, really play. So I think that's going to be tough. But injuries do happen, and I think he's more of a depth piece, probably special teams. Kind of an interesting selection there. Then I went with Casey Washington, which again, you do wonder, is this, anytime you get skill position guys, who's projected to go at 316. So it didn't have the best production either. Does have good size. That's kind of what you look at there, and can make some good highlights as well. But I do wonder if this is a special teams style pick. And then you have Zion Logue, which wouldn't be a special teams pick. You don't usually get defensive linemen on special teams there, so I think that he is more of a depth piece there. I mean, defensive linemen do play special teams, but you know what I mean. You don't draft guys just to play special teams defensively. Is someone who I think could be an interesting player, I suppose. I haven't done a deep dive on Zion Logue, and when I've read about it, again, not that I think the box score stats are going to make him look worse than what it actually looks like, but it still doesn't have a ton of production. He just doesn't, so it's kind of a weird situation. Was projected to go 350 if they draft him in the top 200. Again, there is no 350, but that's where he was on the board, which again, usually when you reach on these guys, it doesn't always work out. So didn't love the end of this draft or the beginning. Thought they had some nice picks early on, though, was kind of my main my thought process here. So yeah, that's kind of what I thought of the Falcons draft. What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. What were your thoughts on this draft? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.